Hey friends, your game might be dying. Today we'll talk about some of the signs that you can look for and some of the things that you can do about the slow dwindling death or the abrupt end of a campaign of Dungeons & Dragons. Thank you to Magi of Asura for submitting this topic and for my 10th class supporters who help me decide every week what I'm going to muse upon. If you want to boss me around as well, then you're going to need to hit the join button down there somewhere. There are a lot of different signs that can tell us whether or not our campaign is in danger, but deciding whether or not you have to do something to change up the feeling of your game and get the engagement of your players again, or when it's time to pull the plug itself is a very personal decision that you have to make as a dungeon master. And it's a painful one too. Most of the time we've sunk countless hours into preparing for the game that people are running, into learning the lore, into building encounters, into assimilating information from modules, setting up maps, and building the world around our players, integrating their backstories, or simply deciding on different elements that we're going to be portraying. And a lot of the time we're as excited or more excited than our players to discover what's going to happen in our story. And so when a campaign is on the downward slope, it can be a challenging thing to keep yourself objective enough to see when the game needs to end and when you need to do something fresh in order to revitalize your gaming group and be able to continue to play D&D for years and years like we all probably desire, instead of flaring out and losing our little D&D group and everything washing away. Unfortunately, I can't give you a hard and fast, this is when it's dead and you need to do something else. I can give you a couple of signs that you can look for. So, lack of engagement at the table, and by this I don't just mean that it's hard to get your players to open up and take the lead and make decisions. There are groups where that's just the case. But if your group has not suffered from these situations in the past and suffers from it more now, then it can be a sign. Feedback directly from your players that they're not interested or engaged in the story anymore is, a pretty key indicator, as you might expect. And keeping those kinds of open lines of communication with your players is always vital to making sure that your campaign stays healthy. That might just be an opportunity for you to change something up, though. So don't just use it as your only factor unless they're telling you, I don't like this story anymore, I'm not interested, right? If they're just not interested in the story, if people's attention has moved on, then maybe your campaign needs to either transition or move on itself in one way or another. If people are making more and more trivial excuses to not come to game, and so it's been sometimes weeks or months in between, and people are starting to ask whether or not there's even going to be a session, then a lot of times the light has gone out of your campaign and it's time for you to start thinking about something new to bring things back. At the end of the day, you're going to have to make the decision individually on whether or not it would be better to start anew or to build off of what you already have. So there are some things that you can do to ensure that your game survives a long time and that things are working in your favor. Sometimes all you have to do is change the pace or the direction of your campaign. Sometimes those pieces of feedback that people are bored just means that you need to make a change in the campaign that you're running right now. You don't necessarily have to throw out all of that prep or throw away the end goals, but if how you're getting from here to there is not enjoyable, then why run that journey? You need to change up the path a little bit and give different opportunities. Or press the pace forward. Move up the ticking time clock, make things happen, and bring the game to your players instead of having your players go to the game. Openly communicating with your players is always going to be one of the best ways for you to be able to discern the health of your campaign and to move it forward. If you openly address this feeling that there's been a lack of engagement or that people are not interested in the campaign and the story anymore, then you can get feedback about what people have enjoyed and feedback of what people have not been enjoying, why they have been distancing themselves. Try not to ask people to predict the future of what they will enjoy or necessarily predicting the entirety of the reasons why. Like, people kind of suck at that. But find out what they are enjoying or what they want more of, and find out what they specifically haven't enjoyed about sessions past. People know what they liked and didn't like, and you can use that information to build forward to the next step, to the next stage of your campaign. Sometimes it can be important to take a break. Even when session attendance is at its lowest, breaks don't always come in the form of not meeting up with your friends for Dungeons and Dragons. Sometimes it means running a one-shot with brand new characters, just doing something off to the side, completely unrelated or tangentially related to your main story, that just lets them change things up for a little bit, and that alone can create a new spark of joy in the main campaign, and can be a way to kickstart a campaign that has started to lag by just taking a little break away from it, doing something fun and different to let people stretch, and then coming back for a fresh start. Sometimes you might want to call it quits and decide that the campaign is coming to a close, and at that point you have a number of different options. You can just stop cold turkey and let the campaign be done, which sometimes ripping the Band-Aid off is the right decision. Other times you could choose to accelerate the story to some degree and find a way to wrap it up. As like a published example, even though they don't call it this way, the Planescape supplement that came out not terribly long ago has an adventure path of short anthology adventures that get you up to the 10th level tier or so, and then jump ahead and they put a final tier session or two of a short adventure at the very end, with those same characters being kind of the idea. You can have continuity and then just have this big jump. And there's nothing stopping you from doing that in your campaign, monologuing and giving exposition of what happened between where your campaign was dying and the grand finale, and then running the grand finale so that your players can feel that sense of completion, can be excited about that final arc of the story, and excited about running that and finishing the story, so they don't feel like there's something just hanging in the background that they missed out on and that they don't get to know, or that maybe they're going to join another group that's running that module at some point in the future, and then they'll have to figure out how to play with all of the knowledge of what they had experienced, but really what they want is to finish the adventure that they were reading. You can also, of course, just rip off the Band-Aid and call it done and start something new. When you're starting something new and motivation at the table has been a challenge for a while, it's important that you are getting yourself off onto the right foot. It's really common at the moment for us to talk about the idea of having a session zero in order to sell a campaign to our players, find out their wants and desires, build characters that can be integrated into the story, and I highly recommend a session zero for every campaign, no matter how established your group is and how entrenched into the same set of rules you might be. Having that opportunity to get together is really important. But something that was suggested on the Angry DMs page a fair while back when it came to how to run a session zero was what I kind of call a session -1. A session -1 is the post-session game from when we have run a campaign before a session zero, where you talk to your players and ask them all of the questions that you can come up with about what they are enjoying. Your goal is actually to get them chatting amongst themselves about the different stories and themes and elements from both the games that you have played in the past, the other games that they're playing, and also from other media that they're consuming. Get them talking about the stuff that they are excited about and are interested in and are enjoying at the moment, so that you can make a few little notes here and there about that kind of thing to help you figure out what the premise of your next campaign is going to be. Coming to somebody with a pre-packaged premise, a story that you want to tell, does not guarantee that that's something that your players are going to be excited about. Whereas when you can take this session 1, let off all of the pressure, not worry so much about what's going to happen, and just relax for a little while and talk about the character arcs that were enjoyed, the movies that they're watching, the games that they're playing, and then you can look for a story that you can create that hits those notes, either by homebrewing that story to fit it, or by finding a pre-published adventure that at least hits as much of that as you can. If your players are all interested in heist-style adventures, or that's the favorite memory that they can come up with from the last campaign was the time that they were sneaking around in the dungeon, then you know that there's a certain supplement that's going to work for that. If they instead really enjoyed the grand nature of plots, or the Avenger movies of saving the world, or tragedy stories, or mysteries, all of these different things can give you information about what they're looking for, so that when you pitch them a campaign, you can pitch them something that they're going to be excited about. And you're looking for a lot of excitement from them when you start that session 0 the next week, so that you can go into that campaign on a high and ride that as long as you can. Ultimately, when it comes to dealing with a campaign, dying or not, the most important thing is for you to be evaluating its health constantly. Because if you leave it for any length of time where you just don't worry about your game, or don't think about your game, then things tend to start to get stale. So if you're looking to improve your campaign, the best way to not get to the point where one is dying and is dead is to spend time every week thinking about what happened at your last session. So I have a improvement template that I introduced in another video that you can check out here that can help you to do just that, so that we can all improve our games of Dungeons & Dragons together. Thanks so much for watching. Remember, if you want to boss me around, the join button is down here somewhere, but otherwise, have a great day. Thanks so much.